Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Mosaic Podcast today. I hope I'm going to blow your mind. I hope I'm going to take a look at some of the concepts that you look at, and I'm going to bring them into question a little bit because I have a guest today who has built his career, a very successful career, by the way, on a counterintuitive thought, at least to the mind at first glance. We live in a world where we so want to do everything right, where we feel like we have to be perfect, where we feel like if we don't get it right, we're a failure. My guest today, Miha I should have gone over your name. My guest today, Miha Matlievski.
Yes, that's better.
So how do you say your last name?
Matlievski.
Matlievski?
Close enough.
Okay. My guess, say it one more time for me.
Matlievski.
Matlievski.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's take it from the top. We're gonna start over again.
Well, I mean, you can just continue. It is the fail code, so things here have to happen.
I love that. So we just failed, and we are living an example of that. So, Miha Matlievski is such a breath of fresh air. Even just what happened right here, as I failed miserably because I didn't even ask him how to pronounce his last name in the conversation that we had before, and I failed miserably with the pronunciation of it. And did you see what just happened? Like, here's the question that I have for you as a listening audience. What would happen if you allowed yourself not to be perfect? What would happen if you didn't have to always get it right? What would happen if you enjoyed the places where you fall down and just relish those and picked yourself up and just kept going? Let me tell you a little bit about Miha here as we move forward. In 2009, Miha had 4 companies go bankrupt overnight, landing him $5 million in debt. That's a lot of money in debt. I mean, all of us have things that happen, but $5 million in debt is a lot of money. Contemplating suicide to escape the pain, as he looked over his balcony, he had a life-saving aha moment. He realized that failure was a normal part of life, admitting to himself that he failed and to recognize he needed to stop blaming others and circumstances. This was the turning point when he made a choice to learn from his failures so he could do things differently in the future and help others. Since then, he has climbed back to create a business and scaled it to 8 figures in less than a year. His life mission is to help people develop a healthy relationship with failure, especially entrepreneurs. His website is www.fail.coach. And he has something that he wants to share with you at www.theleverageoftrust.com. Miha, I've been so looking forward to this interview and this podcast. Just the idea of being a fail coach is such a fresh revelation, because who in the world would do that? Everybody wants to be successful and be great and do all this stuff, and you're a fail coach. And yet, what you said in our little conversation going into this is that we cannot succeed without failing. It's so vital, and we're going to dive into that now. Welcome to the podcast, to the Mosaic Podcast. It's an honor to have you with us, Miha.
Well, thank you, Danny. It's a pleasure and an honor to be your guest, and thanks for inviting me. And, yes, business concepts are, you can't succeed without failure, but something that is way more known to everybody. Well, do you know anybody who straight up started walking, or did they crawl first? And crawling is that part of failures on the road to when you start walking. You pick yourself up, you fall down again, you pick yourself and you fall down. But everybody knows that, and it's like nobody ever just started walking, so we don't take that as a failure, but later in life, when we do basically the same thing, and then we go into huge negative emotions and negative self-talk, and that's where really the problem of the failure is, the emotions.
Yeah. How did you come up with this idea? What drove you to do this?
So after that failure in 2009, and then the suicide attempt in the spring of 2010, and then I had quite a journey to bounce back, and it was one hell of a journey. It wasn't, a lot of people think, oh, you had the aha moment and then everything just, went skyrocketing. No, it was like a daily battle, daily struggle with old habits, new habits, old Miha, new Miha, because I had to literally reinvent myself and come on the other side as a whole new person. And that wasn't an easy battle. And then in 2014, I started that startup that you mentioned. It was an energy efficiency startup. We were helping big corporations save on how much electricity and gas they use. And I was able to scale that one to multiple 8 figures in the first year, multiple 9 next year. And then in the third year, I had an exit. A competitor, a Fortune 100 company, took us over, and I was able to walk away because of the systems in place and all of that. And so normally you go on a long vacation, and I did so. I went to Lisbon, Portugal, and after 3 days of pub crawls and drinking tequila and red wine and dancing to fado music, I got bored AF. And, I just picked up my phone and I said, well, maybe there are some meetups here. I need to be, around entrepreneurs. And so I went there, and everybody asked you, like, who you are, where are you from, what's your story? And as I was sharing those things, a lot of fellow entrepreneurs would then ask me, hey, can you check my business plan? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Because in all honesty, back then I was viewing the whole online guru coach world almost like Amway. It was just like, oh no, I would never do something like that.
Right.
But the magical thing happened as I was helping fellow entrepreneurs. I saw how 10 times better it feels in my heart to help others than just to do things for you. It was just such a wonderful, warm feeling in my heart. And then one evening, I was sitting with a friend. We were having quite a lot of beers, and I was like, what do I do? And he said, well, you love this. You love doing this. You're good at it. At least, you can share good knowledge. You know how to teach. People are having results. You had the results. And said, okay, but how do I name this? And it was him, not me. He said, well, you constantly talk about the healthy relationship with failure, the foundations. Every story that you starts with you failing at something, and then how you created something out of it. He said, you're the fail coach. And I checked it online. It was free. The domain name was free, and I just registered it. And at the beginning, every single marketing guru and expert out there told me, you're making a huge mistake. Nobody wants a fail coach. Nobody wants to fail. Everybody wants to succeed. And I said, you know what? I don't need this. I mean, I had my successful exit, but if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to do it fail coach. And so, I can't honestly look into somebody's eyes who is new in the entrepreneurial journey and say, oh, you know what? I have a blueprint and you won't fail a single thing. No.
Right.
I want to help you fail in the right way. I want to help you embrace failure, because if you do that, if you have healthy relationship with failure, you will be able to fail super fast, and you'll be able to fail forward. And that's where success is. I don't know a single person. And, I've done work with Fortune 500 companies, 100, Fortune 50, with entrepreneurs who were at 7, 8, 9, 10 figures. Nobody has story that is only success story.
Right.
They all have 10 times or even more failures and a few successes. But you know what? Those few successes, they make up for all that shit that you went through on the journey.
Totally. So that let's unpack some of this because I love it, and it makes so much sense to me. And yet we're dealing with human beings who, the more we fail, the more, the common thought is, the more we fail, the more we lose hope. The more we think like Edison, making the light bulb, he failed thousands of times. And people asked him, how did you stay with it? Like, why did you stay with it? And so often we build in the philosophy of what we believe, that if something isn't working, we change what we're doing. We look at what we're doing to change what we're doing because it obviously isn't working. So, and we can, and some people say, well, I've tried and tried and tried to do that. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do something else, which is maybe a part of failure. But there's something I hear inherent in what you're saying that, and I'm lobbing this over the net to you because you're the expert on failing, right, and recovering. The emphasis that I had always put on it before I met you 10 minutes ago is it isn't the failing that we want to focus on. It's the ability to take a risk, and the risk, in order to take a risk and in order to move from a place of where we are to innovate to a new place, we have to be willing to allow failure. It's not like we want to fail, but we have to be willing to allow ourselves to fail, or else we'll never take a risk to get out of the safety zone. So what I'm interested in particular is your emphasis is on failing to succeed, failing forward. Can you just like unpack that again a little bit? Because
No, sure.
how do people get the courage to continually fail and know that they will eventually succeed?
It doesn't even have to be like that. So the first thing that we have to understand is, when do we fail? We fail when we're doing something for the first time, second time. So if I've done something hundreds of times, that's already my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Now, my comfort zone is where I am today. And if I'm happy with that, then I don't have to fail anymore. I just keep doing what I'm doing. But especially entrepreneurs, athletes, and so on, we have these crazy ideas. We never stop with ideas. We achieve one goal, we have 10 new goals. We want to go to Mars, change the humanity. You know, that's us entrepreneurs. So what does that mean, logically speaking? It means we'll have to do new things for the first time. And, you know, it's not 50-50. When you do something for the first time, it's much more likely that you'll fail. So what failure should mean is, oh my God, like, I'm actually going for my dreams. I am outside of my comfort zone. So if I don't fail for a few days, I'm scared, because that means that I'm slacking off.
Mm-hmm.
I have to fail, because only through that failure I can achieve my crazy big dreams. And I have some crazy big dreams as well. And the thing is, you know, in business, there is no recipe. Nobody can give you exact recipe. I mean, just, you know, let's say, I don't know if you like cooking or not. I love cooking. And let's say you ask me, Miha, give me your best risotto recipe. I can give you that recipe. But maybe the rice that you'll buy in the US is a little bit different from the rice that I'll buy here. Maybe, I don't know, your chicken stock is different than mine, and you know, things like that. So you'll still need to tweak it a little bit. That's
Right.
why no guru, no coach, nobody can give you exact one by one step, because how we progress through the journey depends on our resources and the leverages, and how resourceful we are in putting that together. Let's say we both want to go and do the same business, but you are friends with Kim Kardashian and she tweets you out to all her following. I might not make it to 5 figures and you'll be an overnight millionaire,
Yeah.
because you're leveraging something, you're leveraging your network, and I don't have that same leverage. But we did all the same steps.
So pause for me here a little bit. I understand beautifully, and you're so brilliant in the way you explain it. But I want to bring
Thank
in,
you.
you're welcome. You can feel it. You know, it makes so much sense the way you say it. And yet there's a human emotion involved in it where we are not vulnerable people. We, for the most part, people live in silos. I talk about it in my book, The Mosaic, of just these silos that we build around ourselves because we're so scared of really being seen. To be
We'll get to there.
to be vulnerable enough to allow ourselves to fail in front of a world that just is pumped up with fake news, so to speak, of who they
Yeah.
are. Everybody's telling you how great they are. Everybody's telling you how fabulous they are. Everybody's posting only their beautiful pictures on Facebook, but not the ones 2 minutes later where they were crying because they feel alone and devastated. What do you say to people that actually moves them from the philosophy of it to the vulnerability of that moment where they say, hold it, it's, I'm going to come out and just show the world my failure? I'm going to do that? Like, why? I'm scared to death already. I've been hurt so much. How can I show that side of me and succeed?
Um, you like people don't really care. You know, it's we think, you know, you go on a stage and you have one button unbuttoned, and for the next year you are like, oh my god, everybody will remember me for that button. Like, dude, the second you go off the stage, and probably even while you're there, nobody will freaking notice, and it will be just forgotten with the next big news.
Yeah.
So I'll get to that part. I just want one step in between. So I was with the comfort zone and how we have to push ourselves beyond comfort zone. Now, when we are doing things, it's a process. We always, it's always a few steps between point A and point B. The point B, what we want to achieve. So there are only three things why we fail. Number one, the goal was not smart goal. That's a big problem. Often we make goals when we are emotional, either negative or positive emotions. And then we make a goal that's by far not even close to smart. And of course we will fail because it's not attainable. It's not achievable.
Okay.
Now, that's number one thing why we fail. If we do have a smart goal and we still fail, then we have to look at the process. Maybe we were doing the wrong steps, or we had bottlenecks and we didn't saw them and eliminate them. And now, you know, we go to the emotional part. So all of this was logical. And you know, the funny thing is that the healthy relationship with failure is a logical one. And that's what I help my clients with, is I take them from emotions all the way to logic, and we reverse engineer the goal, the steps, and all of that. And always we find aha moments. Oh, I was on a wrong social media platform. Well, that's why I failed. No wonder. I'll go and do it where I need to go. And you know, things like that. Now, when it comes to emotions, what I always say to people is learn and practice two things: mindfulness and emotional intelligence. Mindfulness will enable you to step away from the moment as it's happening, give you that breathing space, and turn off the autopilot. Then you go to the emotional intelligence, and most of the time we are responding with the wrong thing. When it's time for logic, we try to be emotional. When it's time for emotions, we try to be logical. Emotional intelligence, because there are 4 steps to emotional intelligence. The step 1, know yourself, manage yourself, be socially aware, manage others. So the first 2 steps are about you. And that's where you need to understand and know yourself. And that's a journey. That's not something you do in one day. And also this soft skills, mindfulness, emotional intelligence, that's not, oh, I'll read a book and bam, tomorrow I'm all emotionally intelligent. No, it takes a lot of practice. That's how you learn it, by practicing it.
I love it. And I want to move it from a class to a real experience.
Sure.
I want to move it from, because this stuff can come out of you easily. What I want to do is I want to find a moment in you, like, what are you most scared of right now?
Whew, right now, scared. I have this huge fear all the time of regrets. I got that fear by listening to my grandma. She was always full of regrets.
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, that's the scariest thing that scares the bejesus out of me every single day. I don't want to have those regrets. I'd rather do stuff, even if it's crazy stuff, stupid stuff. I will learn from it. I'll do something about it if I see that it wasn't a good move. But I don't want to regret anything.
So using your philosophy of being comfortable having a relationship with failing, how do you have regrets if you're comfortable with failing?
No, it's just, sometimes, I don't know. Of course, you're scared of doing something,
Bam. Okay. So hold on
yeah.
right there. So here's where this podcast actually starts.
Okay.
Because everything you've said, I can learn from a video that you have, or I can learn from going on your website, or I can learn from reading a book that you're going to write, or you've already written. I can learn all that stuff. What I have now in front of me is you. And
Yeah.
and what I want to know is how all of that has integrated into you, and what do people do? Because philosophy is great, all the teaching is great, but when it gets down to it, there's that feeling in our gut that when we're about to go out on a stage, or we're about to do something we don't know how to do, or we're about to even get to know ourselves. I find people are scared to death to even get to know themselves. We don't spend the time to
It's the hardest thing.
And so when people are scared of getting to know themselves, what is the fear of failure that they might feel? And how do they go through that? How did you go through that?
Well, I mean, it's you were used to something, and that's comfort zone. That's comfortable. And then when you start digging and you start challenging everything, you'll have to do things differently. And change is often very scary. In the beginning, it was. Now it's not so much. Now I just do stuff.
Walk me through those steps that went from with this place where change for you was scary, and now is it because you've done techniques that have now become your comfort zone?
No. It's just been doing it, consistently doing it. So, we all have our inner demons, whatever they are. Maybe you're procrastinating. Maybe you fear failure. Maybe I don't know, whatever. Those are all, I call them inner demons. And they don't just go away. I look at it almost like, from the Alcoholic Anonymous point of view, where once you go through that and you're clean, they say you never can't even touch alcohol because you can rebound. And the same is with all these inner demons. You have to fight them all the time. And the more you fight them, the stronger you become and the weaker demons become. But then if you stop fighting, they start becoming stronger and stronger. And I don't know if I've been good with walking up to ladies 5 years ago, and then I found a lady, and now for the last 5 years I wasn't doing that, and now we break up. That demon is much stronger than it was 5 years ago because I wasn't constantly fighting it. I mean, we know why. I mean, that would be a whole different story if I would be in a relationship and go out to every lady and try to talk with them. But it's all about consistency, consistently doing things, consistently every single day fighting those demons, doing things that you are afraid of, and then you're less afraid, and it's less scary. And yes, sometimes everybody has a bad day.
Yeah. Let me lob something over the net to you. I wrote a book called The Mosaic. The Mosaic is a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. So he decides he's going to set out in search of that place called heaven because he wants to just know the love of his parents. He misses that. He feels alone and devastated. And on his journey, he thinks he's going to meet the rabbis and the priests and the shamans and the gurus and the saints. He doesn't. He meets the trash man and the homeless man and the street worker and the blind woman and the juice man and assortment of everyday normal characters. And he wonders, why am I sitting with these people? And in listening to their stories, he hears something in them that makes him see that who they are is not at all who he thought they were before. And the person that's coming to me right now as you're speaking about these demons is a peculiar person, perhaps. He's the gardener. And when Mo first sees, he first experiences the garden from a village away because the scent of the flowers is so strong it carries on the breeze. And it's the evening, and he thinks, should I go in the evening or should I wait till morning? And he says, no, I'm just going to wait till morning because I want to be able to come upon this garden and experience it in all its grandeur. And he comes to the garden, and he can't believe how beautiful it is. And it's so beautiful that he actually has to close his eyes because it's almost too much for all of his senses to take. And his sense of smell just it enraptures him. And all of a sudden he feels this presence in front of him, and he feels this face. And he opens his eyes and he sees somebody standing right in front of him. And he says, who are you? And the gardener says to him, I know who I am. I'm the gardener. The question is, who are you? And he said, I'm a guy. I'm just walking. I was intoxicated by the smell of your garden. And what have you done to make this garden so beautiful? And the gardener says to him, well, everybody knows that when you know colors, you put certain colors together, and those colors go make each other even more beautiful. And you put the smaller flowers in front of the bigger flowers. There's nothing, not rocket science. And Mo says, I've seen a lot of gardens. I know that. But there's something else here that you've done. And after sitting with him a little bit, the gardener says, Mo, have you ever gardened? And he said, yeah, occasionally. He said, well, what do you do when you come to that clump of weeds that you pull it out and it breaks at the surface? And Mo says, well, normally I don't have that all the time in the world to garden, and weeding is one of the things I hate to do the most. So I normally just cut it off at the top there, and I just let it, and I just make the garden look good, and I'll get back to it the next time I weed. I'll do the same thing. And the gardener says, okay, now maybe I understand why you think my garden's so beautiful. He says, I don't have anything else to do. I'm just a gardener. So when I get to that clump of weeds, I take out my little shovel and I dig down, and I dig down, and I dig down, and I take out the roots of those weeds. And Mo said, why is that so important? And he said, because every time someone comes to see your garden and they say, what's that over there? You're going to get defensive because you know that weed is growing. Every time you see it, you're going to have a knee-jerk reaction because you know it's something in you that you haven't taken care of. So I'm wondering but once you get the weed out, you're always going to have to weed. But pulling a new weed out is effortless. It comes out with a slightest little tug. Because once you've cleaned the garden, then going back and weeding it regularly is effortless. It's not hard. It's not a struggle. It's not a war. But you still have to do it. It's only when you leave it for a while and it gains roots that it's hard. So I'm wondering, in your story of the AA world, of you break it and then you have to go back to it, or in your story of having a woman and not approaching women and having it be difficult, in your day-to-day interactions, still you have experience of what it's like to approach people. You're not trying to have.
Yeah, but it's a different thing.
It's a different thing.
I mean, somebody can be super chatty person amongst friends, And then, the first thing in business development is product market fit. So you need to figure out who's your audience, the easiest way, talk to them. And they completely freeze, but they are very chatty in other social occasions. And, I don't know who said this, but um, it's, if you don't have any problems, that's not a happy life. A happy life is dealing with the problems as they arise, and too many people just want to put that under the rug and not deal with it, or not deal with it now. But the sooner you deal with those demons and with those things, the sooner you are moving forward. And it's more like philosophy of life, not so much a technique that will cure anything. It's really when shit happens, you deal with it.
Right.
And it's like, I, in my last office, I had this picture that said worry tree, and it was, can you do something about it? You have a problem, can you do something about it? Yes, no. Yes, go fix it. No, forget about it, and just focus on things you can do. But it's those little things, we just so much prefer thinking about things that we have no influence over.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this Corona time. I can't influence the virus. Nobody can. I mean, until we find some cure or something. But until then, I mean, it helps me in no way if I spend all my days thinking and overthinking the virus. It's asking yourself those good questions, like, okay, it's a shitty place right now. Things have changed. Priorities of people have changed. But what can I do?
Right. So
There's always something you can do.
So let's sit in that virus, because it's very current to people. For those people who are listening to this right now, which is, we'll come out with this interview very quickly. But for those people who are not listening right now, we've had this interview during the coronavirus. The whole world has been put on hold. People's businesses have failed. Some people have lost their businesses. Some people have lost all their economic savings. Some people have failed in their mind. They're failing miserably now, and it's not because of any one of the three situations that you talked about. So how would you coach along this situation to people through nothing that they've done have found failure on their front door? They might be losing their homes. They might be losing their families. They might be losing their businesses. They might be losing their anything. Anything. What would you say to them?
One of the first things that I did when this thing became a bigger problem, I sat at my computer and I created numerous Loom videos to send them to my past clients, and to all of them I said, right now, remember how we were learning about mindfulness, so that you don't react on autopilot. You need that breathing space. You need to check with your emotional intelligence. You need to be a bit more logical right now than normally. You have to be grounded and focus your attention on what I can do, not on what I can't do. And then one big thing, if you've been in business for a while, if you're completely new and you're still building your audience, you just started, and that's a different thing. But if you already were in business, you have an audience of people who like and trust you. Go to them, talk to them. They are people who already trust you. Every purchase goes know, like, trust. You don't have the time right now to build. I mean, you have to buy your time with some maybe cash flow right now. Go where the trust already is. Leverage that. Talk to people. Don't just put a post out. Get them on a Zoom call. Talk with them. See how they feel, where they are, how their priorities changed, what they need right now. Because if they trust you and you come up with something that they need, and you can only do that by listening to them, you'll be able to provide them with what they need. And in return, they'll provide you with what you need. And maybe it won't be that they'll buy that from you. Maybe they'll introduce you to somebody. Maybe they'll open up a whole new bunch of new clients for you and transfer that trust, because trust can also be transferred.
So
Yeah.
a lot of what you're saying now, very practical, very good advice, but doesn't sound like it's coming from the fail coach perspective. It sounds like it's coming from the success coach perspective. It's because
No, but
that's
but
what.
that's
How do people? I want to push you a little bit if you don't mind.
no, sure.
I really love what you're doing, and I want people to understand it. How, in the probably the biggest moment of failure that we may ever experience collectively as a world, do you allow this failure to reconstruct, to recalibrate, to rebuild a world for you that is made better as a result of this failure?
Well, by developing healthy relationship with it. I mean, you can't do it any other way. I mean, if I look back, and I mean, I tell this to people all the time. I know so many people, including myself, who look back at 2008 and 9 now after a few years, and we say that was the best thing that ever happened to us. And of course, in a few years' time, there will be a lot of people who say, without Corona, I would never leave my 9 to 5 job and start my entrepreneurial journey, or I would never focus on what my dreams are, or I would never do this or that. And that completely changed my life. And I am now so grateful. Of course, right now, it's hard to be in that mindset if that's not something you are, because I went through the last one. I already know this will pass, and we'll come out stronger, and we just need to learn the lessons and so on. But the thing is, if I look back, the change started once I accepted failure and made that logical view. The thing was, on that balcony, what happened was that for the first time, I took charge, or I took that complete ownership of all my past mistakes. It was like, okay, nobody is at fault for this, and Corona isn't at fault. Corona just sped the process up.
Yeah.
It was the lack of solid foundations. It was the lack of doing the right processes that gets you there.
I'm trying to get beneath all of it, because I get everything you're saying makes complete sense, but I want to get underneath, because here's what I believe. I believe the things that happen are not really the things that happen. There's something, if we could see what we don't see, there would be something else that we would see. If we could shift all of this to the left, and allow ourselves to not see the world that we've always seen, but see what's beyond the world that we've always seen, because the world we see limits us and breaks us. If you were to talk to failure right now, what would failure tell you? Right now, in this moment, in coronavirus, what would it say to you if you were speaking to it like I was speaking to you?
I honestly don't have an answer to that. The thing is, I mean, I feel, I think I understand, where you're trying to go with this conversation. But the thing is that
I'll tell
failure.
you where I'm trying to go. I feel like you're very in your comfort zone, and I want to move you out of your comfort zone to actually feel you not in your comfort zone, because that's what you recommend we all do. And
No, absolutely.
and as much as I keep trying to sway you over, you keep coming back to where you're very comfortable, which is not the fear, which is not what I believe you are. I
No,
believe.
but the thing
Stop.
is,
Pause for a minute. Pause for a minute. Don't answer what you know. And you can tell me shut up, and we can say we're never going to air this, and I don't want to do it, and you're creepy,
no.
right? Go beyond what you know. Go beyond where you're comfortable. you deal with failure all the time. You deal with that concept. One of the things the Mosaic taught me when I wrote it, when it showed me, is that everything in the world is speaking to us. Our success speaks to us. Our failure speaks to us. The people that we meet on the streets speak to us. And if we listen, really listen, you spoke about it, listening. If we really listen to what this is saying, I would like to invite you in your own time. You don't have to answer here, because if you don't know the answer, there's nothing wrong with not knowing the answer. What would failure say to us if it could speak to us? And let me just go ahead. Go ahead. Go.
No, I mean, I would like to say two things here. So the first thing is, I really had to go through a lot of shit, and going through all of that, I think it's inevitable that you become comfortable with being uncomfortable. I mean, that's how I had to solve the whole thing. And like I said, every single day we are failing constantly. I have to remind my coworkers, we are the fail coach. This is how we do things. We fail, we reflect, and then we try something different. If we have no idea, we try to seek somebody who knows how to help us there, and that's how we move forward. That's the fail coach way. And the second thing is that, every single day through this corona, I am reminding myself. I actually have reminders since forever in my phone. Be mindful, be grateful, and just, I still do the morning routine, and I try to, and every day I calm myself, I relax myself, and I shift into what I can do. And I think if failure would speak to us, failure would say, learn something from this, for God's sake. I mean, you guys been treating the earth so poorly, and like, and all of that, and the relationships, and put this country first and that country first. We are one world. We are so connected that we've never been before. That's why this is such a huge thing as well, because if we wouldn't have the air travel and all of that, it would be contained probably for a while. Now, the world is so interconnected, and we all have to make, I think life is always bringing lessons. It's just whether we are learning something or not.
Right.
And I honestly, I hope that this will take a lot of time, because that's how we learn. If I would solve my problems in 3 months back in 2009, I wouldn't learn much. So I think we need a hard lesson, but I think that's it. It's a huge lesson that the way the world was living is not sustainable, and these things will happen, and probably they will repeat on a larger scale, on a larger scale, on a larger scale. Either we will get wiped out, or finally we'll learn something from all of this, and do things a bit differently. And I think this is amazing opportunity for learning, for growth, for innovation. Pain has always been the biggest motivator for change. I hope we can change. And I think if failure would be speaking, it would be, you need to learn the lessons, you need to change.
So, Miha, if I can share a story with you, it's a very personal story. I share it occasionally, but it's very, very personal. I have the honor of having a 30-year-old developmentally delayed daughter, but it wasn't always an honor to have that. I have to honestly say, my wife passed away when she was 8 years old, and I've raised her on my own for 20, 2 years. She doesn't have the ability to speak like you and I speak. When she speaks, people can't understand her. Because I've been with her so much, I sort of get a sense of what she's saying, even if I can't understand her. We sort of are close enough and the connection's strong enough that most of the time I understand her, but sometimes I don't. And when I don't understand her, what she'll do is she'll scream. And sometimes, to her credit, when she screams, she says the words slightly differently, and I actually understand her. But most times not. Most times now she's just screaming, frustrated in a place where I still don't understand her, because it's not the volume, it's the clarity. When she screams and she doesn't get understood, then she throws a tantrum. And that tantrum can be in the middle of a restaurant, in the middle of a store, at home here when we're just by ourselves, when I'm on a phone conversation, when I'm driving in a car. Anything can happen. When the tantrum doesn't still work, then she'll try and attack. She'll try and either rip my shirt or bite me or do something to try and hurt me. First of all, one of the things I realize is everybody that I meet does exactly those same things, maybe in a more controlled way, maybe a less controlled way. But when people speak and they don't get heard, they yell. When they yell and they don't get heard, they try and create chaos and try and disrupt something and try and make a scene. When they make a scene and it doesn't work, they try and destroy. That can be a family, it could be shooting people in a courtyard, that could be blowing up a building, it could be any number of things. Eventually, after a long time of this happening for a long time, over and over, sometimes 10, 15 times a day, I finally said to my daughter, Elisa, can you please try and tell me what you're saying? Because I want to hear what you're saying so badly, but I don't understand your words. Can you tell me what you're saying in another way? In another way. And in perfect English, with the biggest smile, she went from rage to this just smile that changes your life. She said, I am, Daddy. I said, what do you mean you are, Daddy? How are you doing that? And she put her finger to the side of her head. And I said, you little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts into my mind? And she started laughing uncontrollably, which made me start laughing uncontrollably. And if you would ask me how long did we laugh for, I would have said probably 5 months, but it probably only was really 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes. But what I realized in that moment is that anytime she got frustrated, anytime she started to yell, I just put my finger to the side of my head. I said, put your thoughts here. Like, let me get it. From that moment on, she hasn't yelled, she hasn't tantrum, she hasn't tried to attack. Everything in the world is speaking to us. The world itself is speaking to us. But when we only hear it for the world, it's great to hear it globally and get a message and globally take action to change. But this coronavirus, this 19, I nickname it 19. What 19 is saying to me personally is something that it will continue to say to me. And to me, the failures that will come as a result of me not listening will get stronger and bigger and more. And to me, the result of how we change failure, or how we embrace failure, or how we look at failure, is to listen to the messages that everything is saying to us and have a relationship with it. Just like you say, you have a relationship with failing. But that relationship is actually conversational as well. And that we can hear it, because all too often what we do is we put a pretty little pink ribbon around it and say this is what it means. What's been your biggest failure since you became a failure coach?
Whew. I had a great failure with a relationship where I did all the mistakes of any due diligence and recognizing things. And because I was so much led, I really want a family.
Yeah.
And I always wanted that. And that was my biggest realization from that relationship, was that we weren't in the same spot, but I was blinded by the idea that finally, I might have found the right woman to have the children and so on. And it was that drive that really was guiding me. And even when I started seeing signs that that's not where this thing is going, I kept going, I kept pushing, because of that desire.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to let go of that. And that was, I think, one of the hardest things. just say and really mean it. You know, I have 4 amazing doggies all rescued, and if that's it, that's it. You know, if that's what is in my pot, well, fuck it, I have to accept it. One thing that I did was that I was putting myself second. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
Because then you are not fulfilled, you are not happy, and then that translates into the relationship as well. So that was another thing that I've learned from that.
So if I can jump in, so it isn't that failure, even when you have a relationship with failure, it isn't from what you're saying now that failure doesn't hurt, because when I said what's the biggest failure you've had, that had so much feeling in it, right? That still failure hurts, but you have a relationship with it and you understand that you have to fail in order to succeed. Is that sort of what you're saying to people?
And then the reaction, you know, I mean, yes, it took me a while, but then through a conversation with a friend of mine, a fellow coach, and you know, because sometimes you're so caught up in the moment, and that was like that. Having a family was really something very emotional to me. Whenever we, you know, emotions blind us. That's why I say that. That's why sometimes you need somebody to guide you through that, and to be that EQ mentor in that moment. And he guided me until I saw where I am, and that this is only in my imagination that has a future, but in reality it has nothing to do with future. And then I ended the relationship, and then, you know, I didn't go. And so my first reaction when she left the house was, okay, Miha, what lessons do you have to learn in here? I mean, because the thing is, if you don't learn anything from that, then that's a waste of. But you know, some people would say, "Oh, you wasted a year in that relationship." But it wasn't a waste if I learned something, and I became a better and stronger person by reflecting and going into that, uncovering what are the lessons that I can learn from that relationship, how I can apply them in future relationships, in how I approach them, also in other ways. I actually said that a client of mine said that to me. He said, Miha, you know that since you broke up, I mean, that was already a few months after the breakup, said, you know that in the last few months you became a better coach? Because I wasn't so much babysitting people and trying to do things for them. I became much stricter in that relationship, and it resulted in them doing more, learning more. And in turn, if I was before giving them half a fish and teaching them how to catch half a fish, I moved on to just teaching and coaching them to how to do that by themselves. So, but it was all those lessons from that, and that was the most painful. And the painful thing was not the relationship. The painful thing was when I realized the aha moment that all my past relationships in the recent 15 years were not based on how you build a relationship, the 12 stages of intimacy and so on. Everything on my end was speeding up and doing things that you shouldn't do in relationship because of that want and wish for children. And the hardest thing wasn't ending the relationship or anything. The hardest thing was really, okay, if I want to solve this, I need to let go of that wish, because it's not something that I can influence. It's still not something that a man can decide for himself. Women can, you know, have different ways, but as a man, you can't adopt if you're a single man. I tried. A very dear friend of mine died for cancer, and she was a single mom, and nobody else in the world, and two beautiful sons were taken into foster home instead of given. I mean, how we were so stupid that we didn't just do fake marriage a few months,
Right.
because we all knew that that's coming, but
Yeah.
it never crossed my mind to do that. So I tried. I did everything I could, and the laws were just against me. So there's no way. And so if it's not something I can fully control, so I have to let it go. And that was the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Because that was such a huge part of who I am, is the family man.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being that vulnerable and honest and here with us. And um, there's a part of me that's like, I would really like to have further conversation with you and um, just understand you better in some ways, because there's a part of me that and if this comes across in any way other than how much I love and respect you, I want you to know it's just my inability to say it correctly, because I have tremendous love and respect for what you're doing and what you're trying to do and how you're trying to help the world. Um,
Thank you.
I'm very, 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 very aware of this in the work that I do with people, because I realize how much fear we have around really coming to get to know ourselves, really sitting in some of these pains that we experience, and really just trying to sugarcoat them and put them in nice boxes with pink ribbons around them and make them look all nice. But until we clear ourselves of those sufferings, until we pull those weeds out from the roots, right? Anything we pour into our cup, if we still have shit in the bottom of our cup and we haven't cleaned it out, we can pour the most beautiful nectar in it, but it'll still taste like shit, right? Because there's still that influence in there. And so it isn't, and in some ways it will just invite failure, even though we don't invite failure, even though we're trying to learn from failure what to do. If we haven't cleaned out our garden, every time you will just see weeds again, right?
Yes.
And so, and there's a sense that I'm probably getting the wrong sense and probably not hearing it correctly, but I want to lob it over so that you can have a chance to respond in the way that you mean it. It almost feels like we take these pains of our heart. What you're saying is, we take these pains out of our heart and we intellectualize it to understand it and to learn the lessons from it and to set a course, but it's not connecting with the pain of the heart and listening to the pain of the heart enough to let it speak to us and let it guide us. We're coming up with the right answers again, which is to me like the beauty of failing and being a fail coach. Is it is okay not to have the right answers. It's okay to feel that pain. We have to walk through that pain. We have to go into it, and we have to slowly clean out all that shit that's at the bottom of our cup, so that when we finally pour the nectar in, it's nectar that we just can drink and enjoy and relish in the flavor of it, rather than have the same old flavor happening for over and over and over again, for whether it's 15 years or, in my case, 15 years of listening to my daughter scream and not understanding how to do it. We all do it. And it's okay. Like, the beautiful thing is, it's okay. It takes whatever time it takes to do that. And in business, we talk about it. Every time we get a no, we celebrate, because it takes 1,000 no's to get a yes sometimes. And so we go, now we're only 999 no's away, right? So we celebrate it because we know that's part of the process. But in the personal world, failure as a person seems to just dig a hole deeper and deeper, like a rut that becomes harder and harder to get out of. And we can intellectualize it and say we've learned the lesson, but it doesn't take the pain of the heart away. And I just wonder what you would say. Is it an intellectual process that you've come up with? Is it a heart process? Are you sitting in the pain? How do you move people with that pain of the heart? Because, with all due respect, and I might see this totally wrong, and please know, I know you all of 18 seconds, so I have no idea who you are. Okay. But as I listen to you, I still feel that pain of the heart there, even though you've come up with a strategy of how to redo it. And if that pain of the heart is still there, you'll continue to walk into those relationships feeling this pain rather than the freedom from that pain. And I probably have it wrong because I don't know you well enough to know, but it's just my impression. And it's just an instinct. And if people don't get a chance to deal to, like, I don't say build a house in your pain. I don't want people living in their pain. But we have to walk down there, and every time we pass it, we have to take a little box of it out to the trash man and put it in the trash can and let the trash man take it away. But if we don't do that, it just continues to grow roots like the gardener. It just grows more and more roots, and we think we're cutting it down. We think we're getting through it. We think we're going through it. But it's just a beautiful intellectual process that says this is the way we work the world. But it hasn't changed our heart.
You know,
the reason I'm asking just this.
No, yeah, I get.
Failure is such a pain it's such a pain in the heart when we feel we're a failure. It's so painful to us to stand up and say, I've just failed over and over and over, and I don't want who wants the world to know that? I mean, I'm vulnerable. I'm a vulnerable man, and I don't know that I want to share my failure. I'm overweight. I don't share my failure, right? I don't like, you know, but and if you say to me, Danny, you're the sweetest, kindest man, I'll go, oh yeah, that's great. But if you say to me, you're a fat mofo, you know, and you bug me, that's what gets into me, because it's the weed in me that's still there that I haven't figured out how to solve, because I haven't come to peace with that failure. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand. And I want to say, you know, I think it starts on the intellectual level. But then, you know, as you practice and practice and practice and repeat same things, it kind of gets into you. Like, I don't know, like, you know, what you said, that pain of heart. I don't feel it that way. I really accept it. And, you know, like, magical thing happened a few months after I really accepted that. A new lady walked into my life, and I said, oops, what were the lessons that I learned from the previous relationships? Yeah. Okay, let's take it one step at a time. Let's not rush. Let's do this. Let's get to know each other. Let's do the reflection. Let's not, you know, overlook the problems. Let's see what is the one thing that's super important to me. Communication. Can we have the right communication? This, that, and just checking things off. And so far, it looks like the best relationship so far. And I just take it one day at a time. I've learned to do that. So I'm not overthinking. I'm not planning already kids and I don't know what. And so I'm taking it in a completely different manner. Now, how did that happen? I don't know. I don't know, did I master something or did I change something? It's not that there's like a magical technique, but I do a lot of, you know, a lot of reflection every day, a lot of reflection. I do my morning routine. I do my evening routine. I do a lot of thinking. I do a lot of learning. I do a lot of analyzing as well, patterns, searching for patterns and see how certain patterns led me in one direction, certain patterns in the other direction. I have the freedom, God bless, that, you know, I have the freedom of choice. I have an amazing team, so I'm not really that much needed in the business. So I have plenty of time, and for the last few years, normally on Sunday I plan my week. Miha is always comes first, and business is the last thing that I put in. Everything else comes first, because having those boundaries is a great thing. Yeah. Because then you start thinking, you know, with the ROI and not the abundance, and then you don't accomplish anything. You're just doing a lot of busy work. So I do a lot of inner work every single day, whether that's
Fabulous.
meditation, a reflection, learning, reading, writing, journaling, and all of that. And I'm of course I'm not done.
Right.
I think this will be a never-ending story, and every time when something new happens, the first trigger might be emotional.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned how to calm myself down sooner. Like for example, that
Yeah.
deep breath in, breath out became my natural reaction.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but just doing that in that moment calms me so much.
Yeah.
And it's enough to take me so much away that I can then be in the driver's seat, what I will do next.
Fabulous.
Now, I don't know, like I really, honestly, I mean, it was a really good question on your end. And is this me blocking maybe certain parts? Is that healthy, unhealthy? I don't know.
Yeah.
It serves me well.
Yep.
I do think when I look back and when I look on today and every day, that I live a very happy life, that I'm really happy, not because of success or anything, but by really living in alignment with who I am. I think
Yeah.
I was able to discover and undig the real Miha.
Yeah.
It was a long journey, many years of discovering and challenging everything, uh, and really just living in alignment with that. But yeah, I honestly, yeah, I don't know whether maybe
Honest.
I'm putting something on the side and it's there boiling. I'm
Yeah.
just not recognizing it. I don't know. I don't see it,
Yep.
but it might be there. I
Totally.
don't know.
Totally. So, first of all, thank you. What a brilliantly honest and beautiful way to even assess your own situation by saying this is what I think is happening, but I don't know. There might be something else there.
Well,
A lot of the work that I do with people is helping them to see what they don't see, to hear what they don't hear, because when we see the things that we see, it becomes very comfortable for us to build the places where we live. And I love the place where you talk to people about being uncomfortable and trying and doing things new, because even in dealing with a lot of the things we deal with, we create new comfort zones those were our fear zones before, but now we've made them comfortable zones, which in some way sounds great, but in some way diffuses everything that we're doing, because it's only out of our comfort zone that we continue to grow. Let me change, because I could talk to you forever, and I hope we will have more conversations, because I literally love this conversation. I love that you allowed me to push you a little bit. I love that you responded so honestly, and I really respect you for the man you are and the work you're doing. When you look out your
thank
window,
you.
when you look out your window today at the world you see below, or the world you see around you, is this the world you always dreamed you would hand to future generations? For those children that
No.
you wish you tell me, so what is it that you would say to people? What's one thing that you could offer people that would help to make this world, that they could do, that would help to make this world one that you would unequivocally say, when I ask you that question next time, this is the world
Well,
I want to hand over to future generations?
Well, maybe so. I was always a dreamer, and I always had big dreams. Like I want
Right.
to save the world. I want to change the world. I want to do big stuff in Africa and here and there. But I never did the little things.
Mhm.
And then at one point, I said to myself, well, I mean, you're full of BS. And I mean, you're that couch commentator
Yeah.
on Facebook. Just go and do something. Save one dog today or help one kid. But it's those little things that little by little you save many, you do more. I mean, I'm never satisfied with the level of what I'm doing. I want to grow much beyond that.
Yeah.
um, and I will never stop until
Beautiful.
I die.
Beautiful.
But not being able today, this is one thing that's also very common among entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs. Oh, but I don't have this and this and this and this. Learn to do what you can with what you have.
Love it.
Everybody can do something, whether that's a random act of kindness, a smile when you go into the store, I don't know, buy a piece of salami and feed that dog on the street, like whatever. Just do little steps, because those little steps over time will become big things,
Love it.
and everything else is just BS.
Miha, if people, not if, because I'm sure people are going to want to get in touch with you, just mention again for us how they can get in touch with you, and tell them how to find you.
Well, the easiest thing, in the beginning, you said how marketingly wise this was. Well, if you're a fail coach, you have your own category on Google. So if they go on Google and just search fail coach, um, I'll be the thing that they'll find. And they'll see my LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, and then they can choose whichever platform they prefer and, connect with me there.
Perfect. And your website again is
Coach.
www.failed.coach. And we're
Yes.
going to have all of those in the show notes, so that you don't have to worry. But I love that you can go to Google and put fail coach, and you'll see Miha come up. That's how beautiful, how simple, how great is that? Okay. I want to thank you, Miha, for your time. I want to thank the people that have come to listen to us for their time. And what I normally do is I take about a minute or two just to summarize. With your permission, I would love to do that now.
Absolutely. And I would just love to say first, thank you for having me. I love these conversations. I love, the most boring interviews. And, I'm sorry if I offend any podcasters out there, but when you ask same 5 questions to every
Yeah.
guest,
Yeah.
and then you just shut up and listen.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this. I love the interaction. I love the challenges.
Yes.
I just love it.
And I could feel it, and I love that you were game for it, because I pushed you hard in some places, and I love the ability, and that's really goes right into my summarization. I think one of the beautiful things that Miha has, and one of the beautiful trainings, and one of the beautiful acceptances of being a fail coach, is that it's okay not to get it right all the time. And yet, even Miha, which I think is, what an intelligent, beautiful human being, right? And yet, even with his concentration on how okay it is to fail, I noticed in some of our conversation the ability to go right back into the comfort. All of us have it. And I want you to see how okay that is. But when you notice that we're going into the comfort zone, whatever that is, what would it take for you to have the courage to come out and say, I might fall down on my face, but it's okay? Because everything that's ever been meaningful, anything that's happened in this world that has ever changed the way we see the world, has come as a result of people trying it and trying it and trying it, failing flat on their face, getting back up and realizing it wasn't quite the right thing, and adjusting it slowly, slowly, slowly. There's so many stories of the greatest people in athletics, or in discovery, or in science, or in religion, failing so many times that most people would think, I can't go on another moment. But the beautiful thing about failure is, from my end, everything in this world is talking to us. And if we were just to listen, if we were to create a relationship with everything, failure, create a relationship with failure, ask it, why am I failing? What do you want to say to me? What could I do differently, so that it doesn't have to yell and tantrum and destroy? That if you would listen to it when it whispers to you, you would fail less and fail forward. I don't think Martin, even as being a fail coach, wants you to fail all the time. He wants you to fail forward and learn how to succeed from the failures that we have, because all of us look, inherently, all of us want to do good things. All of us want to do the right things. But what if we were to reprogram ourselves and our mind and our state of being to say that failure is a great thing, not a bad thing? That it's the most important thing that we can do in order to give ourselves the possibility to risk doing something we've never done before. I hope that those of you who are listening will Google fail coach and contact Miha. This is a brilliant man. This is a man with a heart of gold. This is a man that I think will help you reposition and recalibrate your life in a way that allows you to fail forward. It's my honor, Miha, to have you. It's my pleasure again for all of you who are listening through the Mosaic community. Thank you for your time. If you like this episode, please take time and give it a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Please write a review of it. Please write your comments. Tell us anything. If you hate it, tell us that too. It's time for us to interact with each other. It's time for us to really get out of this comfort zone of I'll just sit back and listen but not say anything. And I hope that you'll contact him, because one of the most beautiful places that I think we got to today in this interview for me was Miha's ability and lack of reluctance, whatever that word is, that is lack of his ease in moving from what he normally does to this place where he became vulnerable, even a little more vulnerable in front of us. That to me is the magic of this podcast. We open up the doors that other people keep shut. Miha talked about it as the 5 questions most people ask. I don't do that. I listen to what someone's saying. I get perplexed in my mind of what the heck is going on. I ask about it. I push back, and from it comes something so beautiful. And I thank you, Miha, for walking that ground with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really, really appreciate you and appreciate what you're doing with your podcast. Thank you for having me. I loved every second of it.
My honor.
And it would be a big honor and a privilege that we stay in touch and we have more of these conversations on air, off air. Really doesn't matter, but just to keep having these conversations.
I love it. And let's make it happen, because that's my desire too. Thank you again, everyone. We'll see you next podcast. That we are so honored for your time and your commitment to be with us. Bless you. And until next podcast, we'll see you later.